mansion, and we're having a big 1-week celebration of her 60th birthday.
Oh, nice.
So she told me this morning as she was getting ready for work, she said, "You have to buy new blue jeans." And I said, "Why? I've got lots of blue jeans." She said, "All of your blue jeans are old and baggy and terrible and covered with paint and ripped." And she said, "You cannot take those old blue jeans. You got to buy new blue jeans." So I teased her and she got angry. And so this morning I bought new blue jeans. So she hasn't seen them yet. She hasn't come home from work. You ready?
Yeah. Woohoo! If I could whistle, I would.
So I'm feeling very sexy in my clothes. This is the first new blue jeans I've bought in so many decades I can't remember. Because I buy used ones. I get them for $5. Old ones. And I love them. You know?
Well, you're looking very sexy. I have to say, I love the blue jeans and the shirt. It's all working. It's working, Howard.
Yeah. My wife's comment to me is when I get dressed, when we're going out, she said, "You look like a homeless person. Is that the look you're going for?"
Look, you know, I have to tell you a secret. I've interviewed many, many people, but some people just kind of squeeze inside my heart a little bigger than the others. And there's two of you. You're both men, and you're both sort of older men. You and Garnet Schulhauser have sort of squeezed inside there a little bit bigger than I fall in love with everybody, but then some just sort of linger a little longer. And Garnet, I'm actually interviewing him again. Will be like the 4th time he's been on the show next week. He was a corporate lawyer for 40 years, and a homeless man stopped him in the street and started beaming this bright blue, like had beautiful blue eyes, loving, unconditional loving energy into him, you know, and Garnet, who was conservative Catholic corporate lawyer and not really spiritual, because he was a very, you know, like diplomatic, scientific man, a very, you know, logical man. He said he was like stopped like a deer in the headlight. And this unconditional love was just coming out of this homeless man's eyes. And this homeless man said to him, "Why are you here?" And then he disappeared. and then Garnet's like, "Oh my God," you know, like, and then he tries to find this homeless man. And he can't. So he goes back the next day to the same place, and he looks everywhere and he can't find him. And so he gives up. And then he spots him sitting on a bench in a park, across the street. So he goes over and he sits down and he starts having this conversation with this homeless man. And he said, why did you do that to me yesterday? Like, who are you? And the conversation unfolds, and the homeless man says, "Well, I'm a soul just like you. And I've got some things to share with you if you would listen." And Garnet says, "Well, why would I listen to someone like you? You're filthy and you smell like a dead fish." And the homeless man says, "Well, you could sit here and have a conversation with me, or you could go back to your endless emails on your computer and try to work out, you know, what you're doing there, that, you know, in your office with all your emails." Anyway, it was a beautiful conversation that unfolded. And the homeless man turns out to be his spirit guide, who had manifested in physical form. And then their relationship continues today. But in his astral body, he spoke to him physically a few times, and then he stopped appearing as a physical homeless man and just spoke to him in his thoughts. And I said to Garnet, "How did you know it was him speaking to you?" And he goes, "Oh, because I recognized his voice." And I said, "Oh, okay, so you could hear his voice?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, very clearly." And then he said that he would take him out of his body at night and fly him around the cosmos. And he would, he's written 4 books, and his 4th has just been released. And his adventures are just extraordinary, unbelievably extraordinary. Anyway, I said to him recently, Albert is the name of the homeless man. I said to him, "Does your spirit guide Albert still appear as the homeless man when you see him in astral form?" And he says, "Oh, absolutely. He just maintains that persona, that identity, always showing up as the smelly, ugly, unwashed, homeless man. And I find it such a cosmic joke because it kind of reminds us to not get too caught up in our appearance, if you know what I mean? Like that it's kind of a bit of a joke too between him and his guide Albert, that he would show up as a homeless man and unwavering, always look like he could appear as anything, right? But he appears as a homeless man.
Yeah. Especially, I think attorneys are very conscious about appearance and presentation. You know, they always, you know, that's really a big thing to attorneys. They judge people that way. So for him to appear as someone that he would have nothing to do with, you know.
Exactly. And that was the sort of the cosmic joke between him and his guide, you know, because his guide was like his best mate, you know, his buddy, and, you know, like in spirit, that is appearing as this homeless man. But, you know, since then, that happened in 2010, I think, or 7. It happened a while ago, like 10 years ago. And so since then, he's since quit the corporate, you know, about a year after that, he quit the corporate work and retired. He's in his 60s now. He was in his late 50s then. And he was guided to write these books. And like you, he's written 4 books. And Albert turns up and guides him to write all this stuff down. And he said, you know, you're my messenger on earth, and you're going to write what I'm going to show you. And so that's his mission now, is to spread, you know, the message that he's shown through the homeless man. But he never appears as an angel or as Jesus or as any, you know, sort of divine entity. He appears as the homeless man, which I just find hilarious. Yeah.
God's got a great sense of humor. People don't appreciate how funny God is, you know. And Exhibit A in God's sense of humor is us, because we're really funny. You know, whether we appreciate it or not, we're hysterically funny.
I know. I always believe my life's like this hilarious sitcom that my guides are sitting back eating popcorn, watching, and just laughing hysterically at. Yeah. Especially some of the concepts that we come up with. I can hear them laughing, you know, sometimes when people say things, especially about God and who they perceive God to be, or what, or how, you know. I'll just hear my guides laughing and just say, you guys are just too funny. Like, you guys are just too funny.
Well, you know, whenever I tell my story, I always emphasize that Jesus has this wonderful sense of humor. And one of the things that I really liked about him is he thought I was really, really funny. And nobody in my life ever thought I was that funny. You know, I do have a dry sense of humor. And most of the time it, you know, goes kerplunk on the floor, and people look at me like, you know, what are you trying to say? Are you serious? You know, what are you talking about? And Jesus like totally gets me. You know, he laughed a lot at me, with me, you know, through me, for me, you know.
But listen, let me get this show on the road, and
you got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of Deliberate Creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not this fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
I can tell you angel stories.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want lots of angel stories. Lots of angel stories. Let me do the intro.
Yeah.
Because we're recording. Hello and welcome to Accentuate the Positive with Karen Swain. So wonderful to be with you again. I have the fabulous and wonderful Reverend Howard Storm back on the show. I just love Howard. I was just telling Howard before that there's just a couple of guests that really get inside my heart and stay there. I have to say, everyone I speak to gets inside my heart. I fall in love with everybody, but a couple of them just linger a little longer, and Howard is one of them. Welcome back to the show, Howard.
Thank you. Great to be with you, Karen.
so I've put it out on my little Inner Sanctum group for people to join. So some people might jump online a bit later. So we'll wait and see if that happens. I'm not sure if anyone's going to turn up. But we had a great conversation last time. But gee, boy, did I have some interesting YouTube posts under our conversation, Howard.
Oh.
I had
Hopefully all good.
No, not at all. There's only two.
No.
There's 2 YouTubes that I've done, or 2 shows that I've done on YouTube, or put it on YouTube, that have had the most amount of critical thoughts. And that was Nancy, a couple of years ago, an atheist who went to heaven, and then you. So I've had some really interesting comments about how, well, one person was really upset because they said that I was leading you astray and making you believe in my New Age principles, and that I'm not a very good Christian. Yeah. And
I'm sorry about that.
People were really upset that I was leading you astray, and I don't know. Look, a lot of passages from the Bible were posted about false prophets and the devil and all that sort of stuff. But you know, I don't mind. People kind of do that. But it's kind of interesting how our conversation evoked so much voice.
Yeah.
But so we might address a bit of that a bit later, because last time we spoke, your story is so extensive. And of course, if anyone doesn't know Howard's story, it is all over the internet. He's even been on Oprah and is it not Donahue? What are those American?
Bill Donahue and
Sally
Jesse Raphael and all kinds of places.
You've been everywhere, man. And so your story is all over the internet about how you left your body after this terrible illness, and we explored it last time on the show. But what we didn't get to explore, and the angels actually asked me specifically to spread their message, was the angelic realm. So when you were in this other realm with Jesus, because you left your body and you went and hung out with Jesus, you saw a lot of angels there, or you spoke to a lot of angels. So I wanted to give the voice to the angels today, and we're going to talk angel stories and angels, and it's all about the angels today. So shall we start with who's the first angel that you encountered? What did they look like? What did they say to you? I've got my cup of tea here.
Jesus took me up to an area outside of heaven. We weren't in heaven at this time, we're outside it. And he wanted to give me a life review. And he said he had some people that he wanted me to meet. And so, excuse me, with my wife calling me, I didn't silence my phone.
You know what? I haven't silenced my phone too, and it's over there somewhere.
Hi, dear. I'm doing an interview right now. What?
I'll just fix my hair.
What? Hi.
Say hi. Hi from Australia.
Start again. All right. So I'm outside of heaven, near to heaven, but not in it, with Jesus. And he said that he had some people he wanted me to meet. And he made musical tones. And the closest that I've ever found to that is a set of chimes, wind chimes that my sister has. And they're very, very big. They're like 4 and 5 feet long, and they're large in diameter, like about 2 or 3 inches. And they make these deep tones. And
wow,
they really get to me because they are like the voice of Jesus when he was calling out to the angels. And the interesting thing is that I've had some people that are spiritual. Not all my friends are spiritual, but the ones that are spiritual, they'll be over at my house. We'll be sitting in the room. The wind chimes are outside of this room. No, they'll all of a sudden just stop and they go, "What's that?" The wind chimes. And they go, "I've never heard anything like that. I need to have that." And I mean, people that are spiritual totally connect to these wind chimes. And it was really cool because my sister had them, and I was at her house and I heard them. And I said, "I have to have. Where can I buy those chimes?" And she said, "I don't know. They were a gift to me." And then at my birthday, after that visit, they came in the mail, and she sent them to me. She said, I knew they were really meaningful to you. So they're from my sister, which makes them also special.
So they're 5 foot long, did you say? 3 and 5 foot?
5 and 4 feet long, yeah, and they're very big. They're like, I think they sell for about $360 or $70 in the U.S., and the tone is just amazing.
That'd be deep and penetrating. I used to have some that were about 2 to 3 feet long, and I had them outside my front door, and there was a block of flats next door, and I heard someone yell out, "Shut up," one day because they were blowing in the wind, and then the next day they disappeared.
Oh, great. The only other thing that I've ever heard close to it was in some churches, they have bell choirs, and sometimes the bell choirs will have a set of chimes that they might play, and the chimes that they play are also similar. And the interesting thing about the tone is that it's not the tone when the chime is struck, it's the tone after it's struck, which lingers for a long, with good chimes, they linger for a long time. That's the tone. So I wish I could edit out the striking part, because when Jesus spoke, he wasn't striking a chime, he was just making this tone. Wow. And it just came out of him and built and then resonated. And so that's how he talked to the angels. I obviously didn't understand a word of it, but heaven has a very special place for music. And one of the things that we are going to do when we go to heaven is we're going to be part of that heavenly tonal quality, because it's that whole tonal system is actually the creation of the world. The world is being created by that tone. And
well,
if we were more sophisticated, we could actually, speak into the creation. But that's a level of sophistication we're not quite ready yet for. But I think some musicians, like a person like Bach or something, I think they were right on the edge of it.
Well, a lot of sound healers today speak of this. They speak of the tones, like the Sanskrit, talk about the om or the R or the hu or the he. They speak in tones. It's like their verbiage, their language is the tones. Yeah. I don't know if we can make those tones with our human instrument or even with our physical instruments, but we can try.
Yes. Well, the reason why I think it's important was we're talking about angels, and that was my introduction was the angels, is that their language amongst themselves is tones. Beautiful. And they came, and there was a group of them that formed a semicircle around us, and they were so bright at first, and I was so unfamiliar with that brightness. I'm a little reluctant to call it light, because it looks like light, but it's not like light we know in this world. If I took my lamp that's on overhead and shined it in my eyes, it would be somewhat painful. I mean, it wouldn't be very comfortable to do that. Their light is never painful. The more you look into it, the more love and the more you're filled with their presence by that light. So it's like light, but it's not light. So they came like that, and I asked just generally, who are they? And I was told by them that they had all been with me all of my life. Frances uses the term team a lot.
Yeah.
And that has now become, I have to give her a tribute for this. That's become part of my vocabulary. They didn't use the word team, but they made it very clear to me that they were my team.
That was your team, yeah.
And they told me that some of them had been with me all along, and some had come and gone and had had some other responsibilities they had to attend to, but I have, so one of the natures of our angels is that we all have a team. It's not, there's this idea we have a guardian angel, singular. Well, that's inaccurate. We have guardian angels, and it's a team.
Yeah.
I was fascinated with trying to see into their light, and I came to notice that each one was different, and that there were lots and lots of colors in that white light. And then I came to realize that there were colors that I was completely unfamiliar with, and of course don't have any words to describe them because they're not part of our vocabulary. And I became really fascinated with all the colors that made up the white light, and changing and glowing, and they were radiant, beautiful. And as they interacted with me, like different colors would become more intense and excited, if you will, and others became more dormant. And it was this wonderful, wonderful light show. Nothing in this world comparable. I love fireworks because it vaguely resembles, but it definitely reminds me of being with the angels. I especially like the fireworks when they set off, a whole bunch at one time. Because as close as I can get to it in this world, it was kind of like what they were like, but they weren't explosions of light. They were continuous fireworks they didn't go off and then diminish. They were just fireworks all the time, ever changing and ever beautiful, with all kinds of colors happening in them. It was just I was just totally fixated by them. And I said to them, "Who are you?" They told me that they were, my angels, and that they'd been with me and all that. And I said, "Well, who are you?" Because I knew that I must have known some. I knew that some of them knew me way too well. There's just this sense of familiarity. And they said, "We'll show you who we are." And all of a sudden I had a thought. I said, "Don't do that. Please don't do that." And they said, "Why?" And I said, "I hate people. I never want to see people again as long as I live." Now, keep in mind, I just come from this horrible, hellish experience.
Yeah.
I was pretty disillusioned with the human race. And here I am amongst these absolutely glorious, wonderful creatures, and they're going to turn it down for me? No, thank you. Turn it up. Don't turn it down.
So when they said, "I'll show you who we are," they were going to appear as like a physical form?
Yes.
And you said,
No.
Mm-hmm.
And I now know, because of many experiences I've had with angels, they choose to appear to us as they feel appropriate to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen angels in all kinds of appearances, and I've actually seen them change appearance in front of me. So they, matter and energy to them is like child's play. They can do anything. My sense is that their natural state as spiritual beings is a type of incredible energy, but they can transform that and appear to be just like a regular human being. And of course, I've had experiences with angels that I didn't realize they were angels until afterwards. And went, "Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. That couldn't possibly be. It couldn't possibly be. It has to be an angel." But anyhow.
I remember, we were talking about the homeless man before. I remember a friend of mine had a birthday party recently, and she said, "You simply have to meet my friend, another healer. She's just like you, beautiful woman whose name escapes me in this minute." And we were talking and swapping stories, and she said she saw this homeless man in the street, sort of like cruising along really slowly, head bowed. And she went up to sort of just give him some love, just to help him, just to say, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And he looked up at her like this, and he straightened up, and he like completely changed his posture and stood straight up. And then he pulled out of his pocket a card, and on the card was an angel. And then she looked at the card, and she looked up into his eyes, and his eyes were beaming. And then he put the card back in his pocket, and he went back into like that and kept walking. And she was just like, oh my God, I think I just met an angel. Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, love that.
Good story, yes.
Yeah, they
so
can
they,
appear. Yep.
So the first thing they wanted to do was they wanted to put me at ease, because I was still in a state of awe, just completely overwhelmed by them. So we were just sort of chatting back and forth, and it was really clear to me that they were my allies. That I didn't have any worries with them. They weren't there to condemn me or, judge me or do anything. And Jesus said to me, they want to show you your life.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, great. And of course, what I was thinking was, I get to be the center of attention of all these wonderful people. This is like really feeding my desire for attention, my ego. It's like, all these beautiful beings are all here just for me, and they want to show me my life. This is going to be great. I'm a star. I've won the prize. And so we started off, and what they were doing, and they did this. It wasn't my memory. And when we started off, of course, these were things that I couldn't possibly remember, because we started off with my birth, which I clearly don't remember. And they were projecting it as a holographic projection in the midst of us. And they would include appropriate props, but not necessarily backgrounds, and not necessarily anything that was not important to the story.
So a bit like a stage,
like
a play, like when you see an actor on a stage.
Exactly.
Maybe a
like
bed,
a stage,
desk, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but a backdrop would usually just be a big blank,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
interesting.
what I saw was my mother and father so happy, because they had 2 daughters prior to me, and they had been hoping for a son. Of course, in those days, in 1946, they didn't have sonograms or anything, so they were delighted that they had a healthy boy. The other thing that they were happy about, my mother and father's blood was incompatible. I can't remember technically. My mother told me this, and they weren't supposed to be able to have children, and they had been warned that they wouldn't have children. So they'd had 2 daughters, and the doctor said, well, it's very unlikely you're going to have a successful pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had me, and I came out big and healthy. And then to conclude that theme, they tried for a 4th one, and it was a miscarriage. It didn't make it. So that was the RH negative, RH positive stuff. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, so they were thrilled. They had a boy, and they had a healthy boy, and they had been told that they shouldn't expect to have the child that turned out to me. So my parents were so happy. They were crying, and like watching this, and I'm crying because my mother was much younger than I'd ever known her to be, and she was so beautiful. And my father was pretty good-looking guy. He had just gotten back from the World War II, the Pacific, and so he wasn't overweight yet. He still had his hair and things, and when
noted.
That's really neat. And there were just like all these images that they kept showing me of my family playing with me, and my 2 sisters. One was 4 years older, one was 2 years older. They thought I was like a doll, as in a toy,
Yeah.
And so they played with me, and would like wipe the snot from my nose and the drool from my lips, and they really liked having a little brother, and it was just like all this happiness, and it was just unbelievable. I knew that my sisters really loved me, and I loved them, but to see how much joy that I brought into their life was so wonderful. And nothing but happiness and good times. And eventually I began to grow up. And what happened, and I want to make an explanation for why this happened. My father was driven to make it economically. He wanted to be successful. So he was starting to work a lot. I'm talking about 10, 12-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
He was a salesman. And he got a promotion when I was about 12 years old or so, from being assistant sales manager at General Mills Corporation, Flower Division, to manager of, General Mills Flower Division. So now he had like a dozen people under him.
Mm-hmm.
And it completely changed my dad. Now he's putting in minimally 12-hour days.
Mm.
Working either at the office or on the phone on the weekends. I'm completely obsessed with his work, and the tension was turning him into a very, very difficult person who just couldn't tolerate any kind of things that upset him and the family. So we went from, like, during those early years, we went from playing softball out in the street. In those days, there wasn't much traffic.
Mm.
And so we used the street as a playground.
Mm.
And, I always remember every once in a while somebody would yell, "Car!"
Yeah.
And we'd all evacuate the street to the sidewalk, and the car would go by, and we'd all go back out there and set the bases back up, which was, something to indicate the bases, and we'd go back to playing baseball. And we had great fun with my dad, going to the beach and swimming with my dad. He was a terrible swimmer. He hardly swam at all. We used to love swimming around him because he couldn't keep up with us. And everything was fun and beautiful. And then as he became more obsessed with his work, more crabby, more grouchy, and having been in the military, he brought a lot. He wanted the household to run like a military operation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he gave orders, and we were supposed to stand up straight and say yes or no, sir. He wanted to be ultra strict. He was an officer in the Navy, and he wanted to run the household like a Navy officer. And with 3 rambunctious teenagers, this was not going well. And the angels were showing me how he wanted a great dad. He wanted to be a great provider. He wanted to show his love that way, and he wanted us to love him. And instead, he was alienating us.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother, being the obedient, old world wife that she had been raised to be, because her parents were immigrants, so although she was raised in the U.S., she was old school, sort of 19th century kind of mom. She just tried to mediate. Oh, he doesn't mean it. He loves you. Don't be mad at your dad. He's your dad. You should treat him with respect. And the angels are showing me things from different people's perspective, including seeing and feeling their hearts. Now, it's really hard for me to talk about because I was learning to hate my father because I thought he was like the worst father in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely was doing a very bad job of relating to his children as children, but he was doing the best that he could. And he'd come from an extremely dysfunctional alcoholic family, which was just chaos. I asked my dad one time, I said, what do you remember about your child? And he said, all I remember about my child is being sent out by my mother and going around to all the jails that I could go to try and find my grandfather, because he was always in the drunk tank. And I'd go find him and try and bring him home.
Right.
That's what he remembers about his childhood.
Yeah.
Anyways, the point is the angels were trying to break this all down with love and compassion and understanding. No blame, no shame, no guilt. But I'm feeling lots and lots of conflicting emotions, because they're showing me with compassion and understanding things that I'm 38 years old at this time, and I had never understood any of this. I always thought that by the luck of the draw, I'd gotten the worst father in the world, and couldn't understand my mother would tolerate him, because she was so sweet and gentle. And the angels were showing me. And then as my teenage years developed, what I saw was that I became a participant in the complete breakdown of my father. I mean, I started to become defiant and rebellious and angry. And as a result of that, to give you a concrete example, when I was 15 years old, I ran away from home, went to New York City, and I lived there for 4 months.
Wow.
With an older woman.
Wow.
I mean, that's how I felt about my home.
Yeah.
The only reason why I came home was my woman friend had thrown me out, and I was destitute. And
okay.
I ran out of money and didn't have any place to live, and I was like, I was going down, and I called my mom and said, come and get me, Mom. I want to come home. But anyway, so it was quite an adventure for a 15-year-old. Anyhow, my mother was a nurse, but what she really wanted to be in life was an artist. So I did my first oil painting under my mother's watchful care at the age of 9, which I still have. It's a painting of a rocket ship. And the angels showed me my mother's love for me, which I knew, but it was a crazy unconditional love. My mother basically never disciplined me, spoiled me. I mean, when I was 14 years old and started stealing her cigarettes, she started buying. And I said, good, because I hate your cigarettes. She smoked menthol cigarettes, and I wanted, non-mentholated cigarettes. So I mean, when I wanted beer, this is a really good woman, but I'm talking about 14, 15 years old. She would buy me beer, give me beers because I wanted them. I mean, just no restraint, no bounds on her. She couldn't say no to me. And then one of the scenes that they showed me was my mother always a cold cup of coffee in her hand.
Cold, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much coffee she drank during the day. Tons of coffee, and it was always cold with lots of cream and sugar, and coffee in her hand and a cigarette in the other hand, and we're sitting at the table, and I'm smoking, and I'm 15 years old, and she says to me, why can't you just get along with your dad? Just get along with him. And I told her, I said, I'll never get along with him. I hate him. And what the angels were showing me is that I was fully as much a participant in the breakdown of our relationship as he was. He's looking for love. He's looking for military control over his family, which is, my father had no idea how out of control he was. I mean, he didn't know what was going on. He had no idea what my sisters and I were doing. We were wild. And if you use your imagination to define wild, you're on target. We were that wild. Mm-hmm. The angels are watching over this whole mess, and they're letting me know how sad they are. and they tried to intervene and try to rectify things. Like, I'll give you specific examples. When my sisters went out on their wild dates, they were dating a lot of sailors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you may read between the lines. They would take me along because
men cooped up in a ship together without female contact, and then they hit the shore. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, you got it. But good-looking young men.
Yeah.
I mean, these are full of hormones.
Yeah.
And so my sisters would take me along on these dates, and if things got a little out of hand, like beyond where they were willing to go, which I don't know the details of that, and I don't want to know because of my sisters, but whatever that meant, one thing, because they'd always disappear into back bedrooms and things, but eventually they'd come out and say, "Brother, time to take me home." Of course, they were too drunk to drive. So I've always had a capacity to hold my alcohol. So anyways, I'm 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, and I'd drive everybody home. And the angels showed me how only by their intervention did we make it home, because I drove like a maniac.
Absolutely.
I didn't have a license. I'd never had any driver's training, and I just go like, so we say in the U.S. as a bat out of hell. And the angels were showing me they were actually handling the car for me, because they really didn't want us to
die,
get destroyed, So they intervene, and we're oblivious to it, and they're showing this all to me. And then as my life progressed, I became more and more alienated from the angels. I became an atheist. And all of this is all very, very upsetting to them. But as we're watching this, never a word of chastisement, but they shared their feelings with me, and it made me feel awful that I hurt them so much. And I've said in the past, and it's a dramatic way to say it, but it was like it was sticking a knife in their hearts, like sticking a knife in the hearts of the angels and Jesus. I mean, it really, really hurt them. And I'm standing there watching me on things that I'd done in my life, quite consciously, deliberately, proudly, hurting these people that really loved me and had done nothing but try and protect me from my worst instincts and my worst actions. It was very disturbing to me. Through that whole life review, the one thing, it's very, very simple, that I was created to love and care for the people around me, my mom, my dad, my sisters, my friends on the street and at school. That's what I was created to do.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, I withdrew emotionally from everybody, and became more and more, I am going to be a great artist, and nobody's going to stop me. And that became the direction of my life up until my near-death experience at the age of 38. So I had completely failed the purpose for which I was created. And it was horrible. Just the one that's kind of funny in a sad sort of way is that in my career as a professor at a university and as an artist and all that, I won honors and prizes and things like that. And when we would get to those periods in my life, because this was all flowing chronologically, they would skip over those things, and I'd say, wait a minute, you just skipped it. I just had a big one-man show, I got to work I got 3 pieces in a museum. I won an award. I won a prize. I was named Kentucky Artist of the Year and got a big cash prize at a big banquet down in Louisville. And, and I said, these things are not important. Here, what we want you to see is this. And they'd shown me something that I had absolutely forgotten until they reminded me of it, of how I had blown off a student who had come to me because his heart was broken, because his girlfriend had dumped him. And I'm sitting there thinking, nobody pays me enough to listen to this horse shit. I'm like, this kid, this beautiful young man, it's like who thinks I'm his friend. Because, I knew how to act like, oh, Mr. Wonderful, Mr., I'm Mr. Everybody's buddy.
Okay.
But I wasn't. I didn't care about them at all.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's what the angels had to show me. And it was many times as my life proceeded, I said, I've seen enough of this. I don't want to see anyone. They said, no, it's really important that you see what your life was about. But I've said this before, but I want to repeat it one last time, and I'll stop with this, is that we didn't just see it. I felt it, and I felt it from other people's expressions. That young man who I referred to, who was talking about his heart being broken, his name was Homer. And he was a really sweet young man, and he didn't have anybody to talk to in the whole world about his broken heart. And he came to his beloved art professor, his painting teacher, and poured out his heart. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, how long is this drivel going to go on? I got to get out of here. I can't take any more of this. I had no sympathy for him whatsoever. He was wasting my precious time.
Did he know that you felt like that, or did he think that he'd had a great conversation with his art teacher?
I think he was so wrapped up emotionally. He was weeping. He was bawling in my office. I think he was so wrapped up that he was kind of unaware of my reaction. But you know what? I suspect that on some deeper spiritual level, he knew that he wasn't getting anywhere with me.
So when you were witnessing this, I'm just getting into the details. When you were witnessing this, did you not feel how he felt about you? Like you said, that you could feel their perspective. Like, did you feel?
Oh yeah, he came to me because he thought I was his only real friend in the whole world, and I was older and wiser.
But at the time, he was sort of, bawling and telling you his problems.
My sense was he was just completely.
He didn't know that you didn't care, though. But he didn't know that you didn't care, right? Okay,
no.
Yeah. But what was important for you was to see how you didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so many things that you've said, because a lot of people have said that about near-death experiences, that they get to experience how it lands, how your thoughts, how your being, what you say, how it all lands on the other person. Yeah. And so that's why I'm asking, maybe he didn't hear or feel your thoughts because he was too wrapped up in his own emotion, which is kind of a good thing. But a lot of people do feel other people's thoughts,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But be it negative or positive. And so sometimes words are not needed. You can just emulate love or emulate hate, and it'll land on the other person.
Absolutely. But one of the points that I was trying to make with that whole story about my life review was that we think the angels are all sugar and spice and everything nice, but they value truth, they value honesty, and of course they value love. And they, gifts from the angels can be painful for us.
Yeah.
It's not all sweetness and light. It can be, hard truths that we have to learn. One of the things that I asked them, I said, well, if you watched over me,
how
come some bad things have happened to me?
Yeah.
I said, well, we've never wanted anything bad to happen to you, but we have to let you experience the consequences of your actions now and again. They said most of the bad things that were about to happen to you, we prevented from happening. But we have to let some of that get through once in a while in the hopes that you're going to learn something from it. And I asked them, I said, did I learn it? And they said, sometimes you did and sometimes you didn't.
Right.
But if the angels were not intervening in our lives, very few of us would make it into adolescence,
Yes.
We really wouldn't.
I told you about Garnet. That's what he said too. He met his guardian angel, or one of them, and she said, my job is to stop you from killing yourself. And he said, oh, well, I've been a conservative, very safe person in my life, never done anything brash or, you know, and you wouldn't have had much to do. And she said, let me just show you. And she just, like your hologram,
right,
flick through these scenarios of how the little boy running in front of the car to get the ball, and how so many times she had intervened to stop him killing himself. And he was shocked. He was like, oh my God, you know, how many times they save us from killing ourselves. It's like the parent.
They're still doing it. One of my sort of claims to fame is there's certain spirits in the world that don't like what I'm doing, and they have decided that it would be a good thing to stop me from doing things by ending my life. And I'll give you an example of how the angels protect me. And this isn't the only one. I've got several of these stories, but several years after, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after my near-death experience, I was driving into downtown Cincinnati, which I live very close to, and the off-ramp is a long, curving off-ramp. That off-ramp terminates right in downtown. So this big, tall office buildings that you're going, you know, 35 miles off a super highway onto this off-ramp going 35, 40 miles an hour, and then you're in downtown with all this big office buildings. So the point is, the intersection is pretty blind. You can't see. You can see straight forward down the street, but you can't see traffic right or left. And there's a stoplight there. And as I'm coming towards the stoplight, I'm slowing down a little bit from, you know, like 45, 40, 35, because I used to be a very fast driver. Mm-hmm. Not anymore, but I used to be. Anyways, and I've got a green light. And I'm headed toward this intersection. I'm maybe 30 or 40 feet from entering into the intersection. And I hear this extremely loud voice inside my car yell, "Stop!" And I don't know why I did, but I hit the brake. I mean, like, I shoved that brake through the floorboard. You know, I mean, I laid rubber, you know, I mean, I laid 20 feet of rubber with my nose just barely into the intersection. And a bright red pickup truck with black tinted windows went roaring through the red light, coming across on the driver's side, right past me, just came very close to my front bumper. But the important part of the story, coming out of that red pickup truck was this loud, horrible laughter, like, ha, 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 like that, you know, coming out of the truck. And I knew it was my enemy who had, I don't know if you use this term down there, we call it T-boned. He was going to T-bone me on the driver's side in a truck. And he would have absolutely killed me. I mean, there's no question about it. I would have been gone if I hadn't heard that voice and, like, pounded that brake pedal right down to the floorboard. And so now I'm sitting at the edge of the intersection, and the truck goes roaring off, and I can hear that laughter way down the road, really loud. His windows are up. He's got black tinted windows, and they're all up, and I hear the laughter, like, so loud. And at this dead stop, and with a green light, you know, and cars are starting to come down, and going, you know, I'm panicked because I realized that I've come within a fraction of a second of being killed.
But you know, I want to back up a bit. This is after your near-death experience, right?
Yeah.
So you already know what it's like to die. So, you know, the fear of death, like, I don't know. You already know that it's pretty cool to die. It's like,
right.
So surely,
I'm not afraid of dying at all.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
But if you took a hammer and started swinging at my head with a hammer, I would definitely duck.
Yeah,
I wouldn't stand there and go ahead.
Oh, I know. I get that. Yeah. But yeah. So, okay. So the angels stop us from killing ourselves. They definitely do. I have to say, I feel like the angels are the only ones that drive my car. I think I've said this to you before. somebody gave me a little a little sort of plastic thing with an angel in it, inside it, like a statue of a little tiny angel, and it's been in my car for like 20 years. I just didn't know what to do with it, because I'm like, it's just a little thing. What would I do with it? And so I put it in my car, and it stayed there, and it's changed cars, and I just call her my parking angel. You know, she finds me my parks, but I'm pretty sure she drives the car most of the time.
Well, when I decided to go to seminary, I chose a seminary that's 70 miles from my house, and I commuted there. And I worked full-time at the university during the day, and then I went to the seminary. I'd usually leave around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and get home around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. It was an hour and a half drive. And as you might imagine, coming home at night, I'm exhausted and stuff like that. And I can't tell you the number of nights that I got home from seminary, and I would be in my driveway getting ready to open the garage door, and I'd go, I have no recollection of driving home.
Exactly.
None whatsoever. And
Exactly.
What have I been doing for the past hour? Because I'm home. The last thing I remember, I was leaving seminary, and now I'm home. And it's like, that once again, I attribute that to the angels, because how could I not remember anything? This happened. Oh, hi, handsome.
This is my angel. Look.
What's his name?
He's got a couple of names. Denzel, though he was my neighbour's, and the neighbour gave him to me, and they called him after a black rapper. Black rapper, Drake. Yo. And then they gave me his papers, and on the paper it said Marley, so I don't know, it's got a few names. But I know they totally get hold of the vehicle.
So
they totally drive your car.
So after my surgery in Paris, which was, of course, I had the surgery after my near-death experience, so they had the surgery. And when I awoke, I was in a recovery area, surgical recovery area. And I was all alone in that room, and it was dark. And the room got very, very bright. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of, I wasn't aware of anybody turning on the lights, but it was like all of a sudden, lots and lots of lights were turning. The room was just filled with light. And I was awake and conscious. And this beautiful young man came in. And I guessed that he was in his mid or late 20s. He was blonde, maybe about 5'10" or 5'11", clean shaven, wearing a V-neck, pale green hospital top with short sleeves, and the baggy hospital pants and sneakers. I can still remember his face. He was strikingly handsome. And he came in and he said, "Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so," and I did not recall what he said his name was, but anyway. And he said, "I've just come in to check on you." And I said, "Oh, that's nice of you. How am I doing?" And he said, "Oh, you're doing fine." He said, "You're going to make it." And I said, "Well, I don't feel too good." And he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I feel like a truck's run over me." And he said, "Well, you had major surgery, and it's a long operation, and you're going to be really sore for quite a while, but you're going to be okay. You're going to recover from all this." And I said, "Well, it's really nice of you to be here." I said, "But you speak perfect English." And he said, "Well, thank you." And I said, "Have you been to the U.S.?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I studied in the U.S. for quite a number of years." And I said, "Well, you speak English without any accent. Are you French?" And he said, "French, many, many, many things, many, many things." And I said, "Do you speak a lot of different languages?" And he said, "Yes, I speak many languages." And I said, "Well, that's really impressive." I said, "You're so young to have all that experience." And he said, "Oh, my looks are deceiving. I'm much older than I look." And I said, "Well, you look like you're in your 20s. And he laughed, and he said, "Oh, no." He said, "I've been around a long time."
Aww.
And I said, "Where else have you been besides the U.S.?" And he said, Much of the world. And I said, wow, you've had quite a life for as young as you are, because I'm still convinced that he's in his 20s, And I said, well, it's been really nice to meet you. And when will you be back? And he said, well, I'm going to be around you, but we won't be visiting anymore. And I said, well, what do you mean you're going to be around? He said, I'm going to watch over you, but you won't see me again. And I said, if you're going to be around, why don't you just come by and say hello? I said, I've enjoyed meeting you. And he said, I'll be with you. And I said, well, why won't I see you? And he said, it's just not suitable at this time. He said, but just remember that I'm around. I'll be taking care of you. I'm going to make sure you're going to be okay. I'm like,
so you're
okay, but I hope you come back and visit me. And he said, well, remember, I'm around. I'm with you. And he left. Okay, so he walks out of this empty room, this recovery area. And within a minute, the nurse comes into the room. And I said to the nurse, what's the name of the doctor that was just in here? And she said, there was no doctor in here. And I said, no. And I described him to her, his height, his appearance, everything. And she said, there has been no one in this room. And I said, there was a doctor in this room just before you came in. You had to have seen him. And she said, my desk is outside the door to this room. No one has been in this room. And I said, well, you're wrong, because I just saw him and I talked to him. And she said, it's not possible. I've been sitting at my desk.
You know what fascinates me about this too is that, even if she did come into the room, she possibly would not have seen him. Only you were perceiving him. And, this is something that Garnet said too with his spirit guide or angel, or whatever you want to call it, that when he appeared to him physically, he even touched him. He was touching him, he was holding him. So he had all his physical senses engaged. Touch, smell. Remember I said he smelled like a dead fish. Smell, sight, hearing. But he said that nobody else could see him. So this is something that fascinates me, that they can perceive so they can engage all our physical senses so that we perceive a physical being, and other people aren't perceiving that other physical being, that vibrational. Like, it's just fascinating to me how they do that. So I guess we'll understand.
I had some more interactions with this.
Oh, you did
doctor.
that? Yeah.
So they took me out of the recovery area and put me back in the room that I'd been in when I first came into the hospital. And several days went by, and I was aware that I was going south. I was going bad. I was very aware of that. And they took me off all of my medicines and everything like that and told me I was doing fine. And I realized that I was not getting the care that I needed. I didn't know what was going wrong. Later out, I found out that I was developing peritonitis, which means my whole abdominal cavity was becoming infected, and can be quite fatal if it's not treated. And they were just not paying any attention to any of that. So I'm in the room. This is 5 days after the surgery. And I said aloud, if anybody's listening, now I'm in an empty room, okay? I said, if anybody's listening, I'm going to die here. And I don't want to die here. I've got stuff to do. And an audible voice, not in my head, not a suggestion, an audible voice said, when your wife comes to the hospital, tell her to buy tickets home for Monday, and you need to fly home on Monday morning. And I said to the voice, how can we buy tickets? We're out of money. We were supposed to have left Europe the day after so we were down to like a few dollars, and now my wife had used up the remaining money staying at the hotel and taking taxis and all that stuff. So she was just about broke. And I didn't have a wallet or pants or a shirt or anything. I'm in a hospital, with nothing. And the voice said, "Well, I'll be taken care of. Just believe." And I said, "Just believe?" And the voice said, "Believe." So I said, "Oh, crap. I'll try." And so my wife arrived at that day at the hospital. Now, the doctors had told her that I'm going to be there 3 or 4 weeks, to recover from the surgery. And I'm getting a very clear sense that I'm not going to recover. I'm going to, not make it. And she walked in the room. My wife then was an attorney. She's still my ex-wife now. She's a very powerful, successful attorney, very strong-willed. She walked into the room, and I said, "You need to go buy plane tickets home. We have to go home Monday morning." And she looked at me and she said, "Yes, dear, I'll go get the tickets." She was under a spell, under a compulsion. This is totally not typical of her. I mean, it's crazy. When I asked her later, "Why did you do that?" She always said, "I don't know." She said, I had no control over anything. Because I said, it's insane for you to go get tickets, and we didn't have any money and stuff. So what she did, and I'm going to give you the details because this is like how the angels work.
Okay.
She goes to the lobby in the hospital, gets on a payphone, makes a collect call to her parents in Iowa City, Iowa, tells them, "We need a lot of money because we got to buy tickets to fly home." And they said, "Give us your phone number. We'll call back as soon as we figure out how to send you the money." They called their local bank. Their banker had just returned from a trip to Paris where they had had an emergency, and he had to get his bank to wire him some money. So he said, "I know exactly what to do. Tell your daughter that there will be $2,000 at such and such a bank at this address. Like now, I'm going to do a money wire, and it's there. As soon as they get off the phone, the money will be there. Tell her to go get the money." They call her back, give her the message and the information. She walks into the room. She said, "I'm going to go get the tickets now. I'll be back in a couple hours." Leaves the hotel, gets in a taxi, goes to the bank, picks up the money with no problem, goes to a TWA office, buys 2 business class tickets, which was like $1,800 at that time, for us to fly home, because she knew I needed to recline, and she knew Coach wasn't going to do the job, right? So she gets business class, and I'm going to get this straight, on Saturday, which was like 2 days away. Well, let me say, on Friday, I couldn't get out of bed. I was so sick. I mean, I was really, really going bad. Just pouring sweat all the time, fever. The peritonitis is really starting to take off. She comes Saturday. I said, "How am I going to go home? I can't even walk now. I can't get out of bed. How am I going to get home?" My wife bought me these tickets, and we borrowed $2,000 from her parents. And now we can't use those. We're going to lose those tickets. We'd already lost our tickets home because of the accident. Now we're going to lose this, and how are we going to repay them? We don't have the money, and like, it's all a big disaster. And you told me to believe, and like, all you've done is you've made everything much worse. And like, why did you do this to me? And the voice said, "Believe. You're going to be fine. And it was that young doctor. And so I said, I'm trying, but it's not working for me. And Sunday morning, nurse came into the room and she said, how are you today? And I said, I need some towels, I need some soap, and I need a pan. Now, adjacent to our room was a toilet and a sink, no shower and no tub, just this toilet and a sink, and a little tiny closet. I got out of bed. I washed my hair and my entire body with a washcloth and a pan of water and a bar of soap, brushed my teeth, and shaved. My wife on Saturday had brought me the clothes that I had requested. And when my wife showed up Sunday, I was sitting in a chair, all spiffed up and clean, and smelling good, and all dressed. And I said, let's go. So we proceeded to walk out of the hospital. When I got into the hallway, a nurse came running up and like, Monsieur Stone, qu'est-ce que vous faites? You know, and she's like freaking out because like, you know, I'm walking out, you know, like, you know, I'm supposed to be in bed. And she said, I'm going to get the doctor. I said, go ahead, get the doctor. So she goes and gets a doctor who I've never seen before. And he comes up to me and he said, you go back to your room and get in bed. You're not discharged yet. And I said, no, you're wrong. I am discharged. It's your mistake. I'm supposed to go home today. I said, you can check the paperwork. I'm free to go. And he goes, oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You know, it's like.
But were you just making that up, or?
Oh yeah. I was just. I'm trying to go into the believe mode here.
Yeah. Okay. You're going into the believe mode. I know the way they orchestrate the details. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's why I'm telling this whole story. Because I mean, it's like, it's unbelievable. So we walk out of the hospital, get in a taxi, go back to the hotel. I go back to the hotel. I'm not feeling all this exercises, I'm starting to not feel so hot. So we go to bed, and I just lay in bed and went to sleep that night. In the morning, we took a taxi to de Gaulle Airport. Told my wife, I said, I'm getting pretty weak. So she wheeled me through in a wheelchair.
Yeah. And
we flew from de Gaulle at 8 o'clock in the morning to New York, landed at JFK International, big, huge terminal with thousands of people coming and going, big international terminal. I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm starting to go south. And we've got a 4-hour layover before our flight home to Cincinnati. And I'm sitting in this wheelchair, and the hours are going by, and I'm starting to go bad, and I'm getting scared. And so I told my wife to push me to the men's room, and I went into the men's room, and I washed my face because I'm starting to pour sweat and stink and all that stuff. And I washed my face, and I'm in the men's room, and I said, okay, you've gotten me this far, but you got to get me home. I want to go home now. Please get me home. And all of a sudden, like, boom, I'm good to go. You know, I'm okay. Come out. We get on a plane, come home. I come home, we go, my wife takes me to the local hospital. My family doctor, who is a great old family doctor guy, Dr. Grover, he's at the hospital. He'd been forewarned, and he's there to meet me. And he examined me. It's hard for me to go through this. And he says to me, I've got 2 collapsed lungs, double pneumonia, extreme peritonitis. My liver functions are like off the charts. You know, and he says to me, he said, you're really, really sick, and I don't know how you made it home. And I looked at him, and I started to say angels, and I thought, I don't want him to think I'm crazy. I said, I've got some really strong friends who have helped me home. And he said, well, you must, because I don't know how you got here. And then at that moment, I realized, how am I going to tell people about the angels? Because from that day on, the angels visited me every day, sometimes several times a day in the hospital. I was there for 5 weeks, very, very sick.
So
and
how
they
did
would
they
visit me
in your mind, or did they show up physically?
No, physically.
Really?
Sometimes they would appear full of light, and sometimes they'd appear as people, and they just kept coming. And I mean, I knew they were the angels because they would just come and go, and they would never ever come when there were other people in the room, and they would always leave the minute someone else started to come into the room. And it drove me crazy because people would come into the room and I would say, if you had been here 1 second earlier, you would have seen the most beautiful angel. You wouldn't have believed how beautiful those angels are. And the people, of course, would laugh at me, and I knew that they thought I was nuts. And I'd say, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not making this stuff up. I was wide awake. It's not a dream. It's real. Angels are real. And then the other thing that started to happen was that I could start to see the spirits around other people.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing this. I wasn't seeking it. It just started happening. So people would come in the room, and I would see like their good spirits and then their bad spirits. And some people were in spiritually in good shape, and the good spirits were protecting them, and they were dominant and inside. And other people were having a rough time of it, and there was a battle going on around them between the good and the bad spirits. And I would say to them, I know that there's a lot of conflict and trouble in your life, and if you would ask your angels to help you, if you would ask God to help you, they would resolve those conflicts, and you could find a way out of those messes. And people would go like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy and stuff like that.
But I want to say something because I've been quiet. I wanted to get the story out. Okay, so the question begs, if the angels were helping you so much, why didn't they just heal you? Why did they put you through so much pain and sickness? And if they can manipulate, if they can organize energy in such a way that they can drive cars and make people think things, and they can do anything, they can organize energy, as everything's just energy, why didn't they heal you? I mean, I personally,
I'd asked Jesus when he told me that I had to come back. I said, am I gonna be sick when I get back? And he said, yeah, you're gonna be really sick, and you're gonna suffer a lot. And I said, is that really is that really necessary? Because I don't really want to do that.
Yep.
And he said, you've got lots and lots of things to learn. And he said, it's going to be an opportunity for you to discover a lot of things and to grow. And I don't wish pain and suffering on anyone, including myself, but I did more growing and more learning and more understanding during those days in the hospital than any other time in my life, other than my near-death experience. And I look back, and I have genuinely thanked God for that. I've also thanked God if I could learn without the pain and the suffering, in the future, I would be more than happy to do that. So I'm really willing to learn without the pain and the suffering. But I thank you for that pain and suffering, because I never would have. Yeah. And one of the things that I learned so many things from all that. One of the things I learned was to just give everything up to God. And one of the things I learned was real empathy for both the patients in the hospital and the hospital staff. And later on in life, when I became a pastor, I've spent a lot of time, and do spend a lot of time, in hospitals. And one of the things that I'm really good at is, I totally get what it's like to be in a hospital, and I love all those people, and I relate to them in a way that I never would have been able to. So it was all like this wonderful training for a career of being a hospital visitor guy, trying to bring people a little bit of comfort and patience and love. And so I got a little graduate course in what it's like. But the most important thing was to give my whole life up to God, which is what I did, because I didn't have a life. So I just, okay, God, whatever you want, I want to know what that is, and I want to try and do it and follow it. And what it was, God never told me be a pastor or do this. God, it was just love the people, loving the people that came by the room. So it got to the point, when the cleaning lady would come in the room, I immediately wanted to engage her in conversation, and they were the most friendly people of all the cleaning people, and et cetera.
Yeah. Ooh, there's so many things. There's so many things to say, Howard. So, as you're telling the story about the pain and the synchrodestiny, the synchronicities, the things that are miraculously happen, people handing over money and people, had you not been in that pain and that suffering, that story wouldn't have made sense. If you were able to just do it all yourself, you wouldn't have seen, wouldn't have seen how the angels orchestrate the details, and had you been capable of orchestrating the details yourself. So the pain and the suffering had so many gifts. It gave you empathy. It gave you lessons. It allowed you to see how life is orchestrating to help you. Even though you're in this terrible circumstance, people keep saying, if the angels are that powerful, why don't they just fix everything and everything's rosy? But if everything was rosy, we wouldn't learn anything, would we?
Well, they're in it for the long. They're in it for the long term. They want us to learn. Yeah. They want us to change, to be more loving and more caring, and they don't want to turn us into spoiled brats. My mom made that mistake plenty.
Yeah, exactly. Look, even as a parent, as I was telling you, I was having this discussion with my daughter this morning before you came on. Unconditional love is letting people fall over and feel the pain of the hurt without needing to fix it for them all the time. Because when you let people live their life, and you, as a mother, I can say my doors are open. You can live here. I can support you. I can feed you. I can do all the things a mother can do, but I can't fix your life. That's up to you. Right. And so the pains and the hurts that you're going through are all a part. As I was saying to you this morning, I was saying that everything I went through was a gift. The death of my mother and my father beating me up and having no money and going through illness. And oh my God, I've done the gamut. I've run the gamut, run the race. And all of it was a gift. All of it was a gift. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now, I want to ask you this question. There were so many other things I wanted to say during that story, but it was such an amazing story. So we've been talking forever, and we probably have to finish in a minute. But a couple of people have said this in the last couple of years, not many. And I think it's really a negative thought. My vernacular is different to yours. You say you see negative spirits around people. I see negative thoughts, and thoughts have their own life, and they can, you can feed on negative thoughts, or you can feed on positive thoughts, and they can feed on you. But I don't call them spirits. I don't give them an identity, and I don't give them a form. I just call them thoughts. And I see negative and positive thoughts around people, like you see negative spirits or positive. So one of the thoughts that's out there is that angels, don't trust the angels, because demons can appear as a beautiful angel and then feed off your energy. So one of my clients said, I don't believe in the angels because I've been told that angels feed off our energy. So what would the angel say about that nice little thought?
Frankly, I think that's really, really terrible and unfortunate, because there is a struggle within us, without us, and around us between good and evil, right and wrong, love and hate, life and death. And I know people like to say there is no such thing, but we are here to make choices in our life. And what God wants us to do is to be wonderful and loving and beautiful creatures. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen for a lot of people. Yeah. And it makes God very sad, because he wants everybody to be successful. He wants everybody to be happy. He wants everybody to be loved. He wants everybody to go to heaven. That's God's will. And people alienate themselves from what's good and what's helpful. The angels want us. They told me this emphatically. They want us to rely upon them. They want us to ask them for help. And so, how really rotten and deceitful is it to tell people, don't trust the angels because they could be evil.
They feed the statement was, they feed off our energy. And I just thought, oh my God, who is putting that?
It's just the opposite.
It's so,
they're the ones with the energy.
Yeah, they're the ones with the energy. They are energy. Yeah.
Like let me tell you how I prepare for things. Okay. I mean, this is an energy story.
Apart from buying new blue jeans.
Yeah. When I give a talk, whether it's like a one-on-one like this, or whether it's I've spoken to crowds with several thousand people, and and that can be pretty intimidating. Yeah. The way that I prepare for it is I say, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to give. God, there's a lot of people out here that need to know your love and to feel your love and experience your love. And I don't know why you've put me in this place to be your ambassador, but I showed up. I'm willing, and I have to be me. I can't be anything but me. If you use me, I'm here to use. But I'm telling you, I have nothing prepared and I have nothing to give. But you have everything to give. So go ahead, use me. And that's my preparation. And I'll tell you one. This is from the angels tangentially. My best friend was a Roman Catholic priest. His name was Father Jim Willig, and he was in the area pretty famous because he was so charismatic, and he was the most authentic, wonderful, honest, great sense of humor. I mean, he would get the whole church during Mass to just roar with laughter, and almost all of his jokes were self-depreciating. He was just an amazing guy. Well, anyways, he and I became best friends. And he got cancer, 2-year struggle, and he died. And the Catholic Church asked me to give the sermon for this very famous priest. Okay. And there were thousands of people at the funeral, and quite unusual for a non-Catholic to be asked to give the
Totally. Yep.
So the week before, I said to God privately in my prayers, I said, I don't know what to say about Jim because I loved him and he was the most beautiful man I've ever known. And I miss him. And that's all I have to say. And I need to say something inspiring because there's people coming to this thing, everybody's got a broken heart, and I'm supposed to somehow lift up the faith, and I've got nothing. Yeah. And God said to me, when it's time, you'll know what to say. Yeah. So every day I'm saying, I'm ready. I got pen, I got paper, I got a quiet office. I'm ready to start writing down my notes. And God said, it's not time yet. It'll be time. So anyways, it finally comes to the day of the funeral. It's in the evening. The church is so packed, they've set up a closed circuit TV in another building for the overflow of the crowd. I mean, there's 1,000 people in this church, and there's 1,000 people watching this whole service on closed circuit TV. And there's 6 or 8 Roman Catholic priests and me, a Protestant minister, up there on the dais. And I don't have any role other than to do the sermon. And it finally comes time, it's just about time for me to do the sermon. I said, okay, God, I told you, all I'm going to say is I loved him and I miss him and I'm going to cry. Yep. And God said, almost ready. We're almost ready for you. Just go up there. So I go up to the thing and I spoke for over half an hour. Yep. I have no idea what I said. Yep. I have no memory of being there. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing I remember was the whole church standing up and cheering like at a football game. And when I turned around from the and I didn't know why, I didn't know why they were cheering. And when I turned around from the podium, all the priests came up to me and said, that was the most beautiful, wonderful thing we've ever heard. And I turned to one of them and I said, do you know what I said?
I got to get my...
Because I didn't have a clue. And my point is that the angels were there speaking I mean, I'm willing. I'm saying I'm here. I'm well. I showed up. I'm willing. Do your thing, and they just took over and they did it. And whatever it was really great. And I found out later that the Catholic Church had tape recorded that and were selling tapes.
Do you have a copy of it?
No, because people have offered to give it to me, and I don't want to hear it.
Why?
Because I can't take credit for it, because it was a gift.
Yeah, but I can't take credit from half the stuff that comes out of my mouth. How? But us New Age hippies call it channeling. That's a word that it's channeling your higher self or your angels or your God presence or your guides. I mean, there's so many labels, and they're only labels. Some people say God spoke through me. Some people say I'm channeling aliens. Some people say the angels are speaking through me. I mean, they're just words. They're just labels for the same thing, really. It's just get the ego mind out of the way so that the higher mind can just funnel through, because I'm sure the angels told you that when you're not in your physical body and you're not operating in a linear mind, you are one with them. You're that same energy. You are, that's who you are. You are that.
I so desired to be that way more and more all the time.
Well, I guess the journey in life is just to set aside the ego mind, to just place it aside so that more of that we can be more of that. But I don't think that, just like the pain and the suffering gives us the lessons, the ego mind gives us the richness of the experience of what it is to be third dimensional or physical, or in this dimension or in this realm or in this world. And from that perspective, that the limitations that we place upon ourselves are seen as a great ride, like being on a roller coaster, terrifying and exhilarating at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, so many stories, Howard, so many beautiful angel stories. But how would you distinguish, another question, so many questions came up when you were talking. How would you distinguish angels from spirit guides? A question that a lot of people ask. You seem to call them all the angels.
Yeah, just for lack of a better term, I just, the word angel literally means messenger of God. Mm-hmm. And angels can be people. I mean, your friends can be like an angel. Real people can be angels. And so it's a very vague term. And I know that there's a class of beings that were created that have never been physical. And there's people that go to heaven and then take on roles like angels. So it's lots and lots of possibilities.
And you'd call them God. Because I know that when I spoke to Lorna, I'd love to connect you with Lorna Byrne too. I've told you about her before, the angel lady. She sees them with her, she sees them everywhere, right? And she was diagnosed being, retarded was the name they gave her when she was little, because she was completely and utterly dyslexic and couldn't learn to read or write. But so they kind of ignored her. She's in her 60s now. So back in her generation, they kind of ignored her. And the only people she spoke to were the angels, but she would perceive them as you perceive the man in the hospital, everywhere, all the time, and still does. But she said that, and they've taught her many things, that the angelic realm is different to the human realm or to the spiritual beings that we are who have human experiences, because they don't, she said, have a soul. And I tried to sort of work that out in my head, because, what does the word soul mean? It's, just another label for something we don't really understand. Right. But they don't incarnate into lives, physical lives. They stay as pure positive energy, although they can, create a body like your doctor in the room, but they don't have these physical lives with these limited minds.
Right.
And then I saw on the line, on the YouTube the other day, a woman that was being regressed, and she said she was an angel that was having her first physical human life, and that she had been imprinted with memories of other experiences and lives so that she could have a physical human life. And I'm thinking, I guess anything's possible. I don't know. There are just maybe no rules to the game.
It is anything. Anything is possible.
Yeah.
There's no rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to work it all out from this human perspective. We can get so confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so a lot of reverends and pastors and religious people of the cloth, usually men, well, only men, because the religion kind of doesn't really let the women in many different religions, they have a faith in God, but they don't have the experiences that you've had. Like, they don't have angels showing up physically in their room, or having audible voices talking to them, or lights in their room where they perceive through their physical eyes. I bet you've shared a lot of these stories with your fellow clergy. Have they been quite astounded by your experiences?
Well, what I learned pretty early was some people are receptive and some people are hostile. So I have learned the hard way, the very hard way. I only share these kinds of experiences with people that would be receptive, because I found out that being put down and mocked and told you're crazy is not really that much fun for me. I try to avoid that as much as possible. And I've had enough of that. I don't need much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to be discreet about who I speak to. Even
amongst your fellow clergy, your fellow religious, spiritual people.
Some are really, some are open to this stuff and have had experiences of their own, and so others are absolutely hostile to it. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, one more question before we go, because we've been going now for like nearly 2 hours. I think I haven't got my computer open, but the other computer, there were a lot of, there was some beautiful young man who had interviewed you before my show, who had been on my show, and he was disgusted that I was talking about New Age concepts to a man who was a Christian. And there's like a lot of this separation amongst the religious people, that there's like Christians and then there's New Age people, and all the New Age people are, they're all demons. Again, these are just labels. I don't see anybody as spiritual, New Age, Hindu, Buddhist. I don't see anybody inside their label. I just see us all as souls having a human life experience, doing the best we can.
Right. Yeah, I think, I admire people that are seeking God, seeking love, seeking truth, as opposed to people that are doing quite the opposite. And we do have people in this world that are doing everything they can to promote division and hate and, the demeaning of women and people of other races and stuff like that. So I'm all for people that are seeking. The line that I like to use, which I think handles it beautifully, was Mother Teresa was asked when she was in India. She said, where in India only 3% of the population is Christian, and the rest are, predominantly Hindu and then Muslim and Sikhs.
Yeah, exactly.
She said, how do you feel about all the other religions in India? And Mother Teresa said, and I quote, I love all religions, but I love my own the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to stand on the mighty shoulders of Mother Teresa and say, I love all religions, but I love my own the best.
Mm-hmm. So in religions, you would say, like, you would include the New Age. I mean, I don't even see myself as part of a label that calls it the New Age.
Yeah.
I really don't. But I guess that if somebody had to explain who or what I am, I guess I would be a part of the New Age. But, I love the label the New Age because, guess what? We live in a New Age.
Yeah, right.
We totally live in a New Age. We have technology that's changing the world. We have some beliefs that are changing the world. And none of it's tied up with the old age. It's not tied up in religion, and it's not tied up in the dogma of the old age. And so I like the label the New Age, but a lot of people vilify it as some cult or sect or dogma, again, some sort of organized dogma.
I think the critical word was you used is like vilifying other people. Like if we have anything to offer people by our love of God, it's certainly not vilifying other people that are seeking God. It would be like seeking connection with them. And a story that I like to tell, my wife and I were in China. We were there for a month. We were in Beijing, staying at a really cool little 2-story local hotel. And there was this woman whose spirit I fell in love with her spirit. With my wife, I was not interested in having relations with her.
I fall in love every day. I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I went up to her and I said, I'd like to talk to you about your beliefs. And she said, well, I'm a Buddhist. And I said, well, I'm a Christian. Tell me more. And so she talked. And I know she was a little bit defensive, waiting for the hammer to come down on, And I said, you know what? And what she told me was so beautiful and so loving and so good. I said, no, I think you're in a perfect place. The last thing I would want to do would be to change you or to tell you to do anything other than what you're doing. I said, I really admire you. Keep on doing what you're doing, because you are, in a perfect place. And I've told that story a couple of times, and people said, oh, what do you mean? You should have proselytized her. I said, no, she was already there. I said that she was probably more advanced than I was. I don't know, let me just say this. One of the things that I've really come to realize is very simplistic, but it's true for me. Mm-hmm. There's people that love God, and there's people that love their religion. I love people that love God, and we always get along, and we have no problems no matter what their background is. And oftentimes when I meet people that love their religion, all of a sudden there's all these barriers and obstacles, and they want to change me. They want to convince me that they're right and I'm wrong. And it's like, whoa. Hold your horses. Let's go into the love territory and get off the, these little doctrinal differences that you think divide us. They don't divide us. You know what I do? And this isn't knowing me. When people ask me if I'm Catholic, I say yeah. If people ask me if I'm Buddhist, I say yeah. If they ask me if I'm Hindu, I say yeah. And I said, how can you say that? We know that you're
a reverend. What if they ask you if you're an atheist?
That I would not agree with.
I want to tell you.
Yeah, I would. That one I can't.
I want to tell you a quick story.
I love atheists. I love atheists.
When I moved into this suburb, the Meetup website. So anyway, maybe you don't. So Meetup is a website where you put your location and your interests in, and it sends you people that meet up with those similar interests. And so most of the interests were spiritual interests, and and New Age interests, healing and energy work and all that sort of stuff. But I put in that social, and I went to a social meetup, a breakfast, thinking that I was going to be amongst people that really didn't have my caliber of conversation, because I like to talk about what we're talking about. And then, of course, as life would have it, or I could say I sat next to this beautiful man who was working with children and working in detention centers with children and teaching them music and loving them. He was one of the most incredible, beautiful, healing, gorgeous men, an absolute atheist. Yeah. And I tried to engage him in some sort of conversation around spiritual energy, spirituality, and he would not have a bar of it. He just would not go there. But his work was amazing. Worked in prisons and worked with children and children that are in detention. The immigrants that come here that get locked up. We do that in Australia. I don't know why we do that. And then these poor people live in these like prisons while the government decides whether they're going to keep them or send them home, or anyway, it's terrible. And he would go in and he would teach them music, and he would love them, and he was just such a loving, caring, beautiful man. Absolute atheist. Absolute, did not want to have a conversation about New Age, spirituality, Buddhism, nothing. Couldn't go there. It was really fascinating. Yeah, so I would say
there's something in his background.
he was living these
background.
Spiritual principles of oneness and connection and service, and yet not having that conversation in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that was his heart.
Yeah.
His heart was there, but his mind had been traumatized somewhere in the past about religion, and he had built this huge defensive mechanism against it.
Yeah. Amazing. Anyway, it takes all types to make this beautiful, diverse, delicious world, and it's such a blessing. It's been such a blessing to talk with you and the angels this morning. Oh, the angels have been.
Likewise.
We could talk angel stories all day. So nobody jumped on, so that's okay. We didn't get that organised, but I'm going to invite you back again next year.
Great.
I just have to work out a date with and I'll have a group of people to talk to, my Inner Sanctum group. So we do these webinars where I gather a group of people, and we get to hear your stories, swap stories, talk, have a lovely time. And so next year I'd love to invite you back. Thank you.
Okay, blessings and peace to you. Namaste.
Namaste, blessings, and thank you again.
Thank you.
What can I say about that one? Excuse me. That one went for about 2 hours, but oh wow, isn't Howard just beautiful? He has so many stories, so many beautiful stories, and we were just chatting after I finished the recording, as we do, and I was saying I want to bring him down to Australia one day, and the angels are going to help me do that, because the angels are helping me find some financial abundance. And they told me that I said, "Ooh, maybe I could help Howard, find some financial abundance." And they said, "No, he won't get what you're doing, but you can find it, and then you can help him that way." So I said, "All right, that's the plan." So maybe in a couple of years, we'll get Howard down under and do some talks and talk more angels, have a whole night with Howard and the angels and all sorts of things. That'll be fun. Thanks again for listening. If you stayed all the way to the end, like 2 hours. And if you want to meet Howard, he's coming into the Inner Sanctum next year, which is 2 hours of us talking. We get to share. He's going to share his stories. I didn't do much talking today. There was so much I could have said, because he's just so full of stories, so I just let him talk. But in the Inner Sanctum, we all get to ask him questions, but share our stories and share our wisdom. It's really not about one teacher teaching the others. It's about teachers or people with experiences, or just people, seekers, coming together to share their love and share stories and learn from each other. And remember, I call my sessions reminders from home, because all of us know much of what we talk about. Well, we all know from our soul's perspective, or our higher self, or our angelic perspective, or whatever you want to call it. But the little linear ego mind needs to be reminded. So my sessions are called Reminders from Home. So in the Inner Sanctum, that's what we do. We're all reminding each other the path back home in here, not necessarily outside of ourselves, but to live heaven on earth, to be in heaven while living on earth. So join us if you feel that you want to come in, and you get to meet some of the amazing people that I speak with on the show. Thanks for listening. Much love to you all. Mwah! Blessings. Bye for now.
We are the love, we are the love.
Thanks so much for joining us for another enlightened conversation on Accentuate the Positive. If you would like spiritual guidance from my guides, Blissful Beings, go to KarenSwain.com for a reading, or to listen to more enlightened thought leaders share their wisdom. Go to the listen page on KarenSwain.com and choose who you want to listen to. All the podcasts are also available on iTunes. Remember to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it, we're there. Until next time, bye for now.
If you feel like that's what you want to do,